Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the Treasure Keeper. This is the brand new pattern from Puntillas Y Nudos, and it is a simple, quick, fun pattern that is practical and has so many different uses. This pattern is designed to be worn on your belt. These are belt loops and supposed to fit through there. I don't even wear a belt. I wear yoga pants all the time. So I made one version with hooks on the end so I could use it for different ways. Like I could attach a crossbody strap here and wear it that way. In the video today, I'm actually going to show you how I'm going to be using them from now on. I'm making a strap to go around my hips or to even wear as a sling, and so that's what I'll be doing. I do know that the designer is working on hacks so that we can make these tabs like with snaps on them, so we can open them and snap it over things so that you can have even more ways to use this pattern. But it's a fun pattern. It can be a very economical pattern to make because really you don't even need this cam snap, but if you do choose to use it, that's the only hardware you need. You could easily do a no hardware option because the way it's designed, the flap stays closed easily without that snap. If you don't use a snap, then you have even easier access to flip it open and to get what you need inside. I did ask the designer if she could work on making this have a gusset around the sides and then have a divider in here. So she is looking into that too. So you may see me doing a hack version on this because I wanted just a little bit extra with this, and so I could have even more uses for it. Since I go on daily hikes, I'm always looking for a bag that can fit things easily that I need without having to take a lot of stuff with me. I don't want to carry a big backpack. I just want something to hold my phone, my keys, a bottle of water, whatever, and this is perfect for me. So now that we've talked a little bit about the pattern, let's look at the pieces we're going to use to make this bag. Just so you know, all the materials you're going to see in this video, including these ones I've already made, all come from J&R Edwards. The first thing we're going to talk about is our flap. We're going to need two pieces for our flap, the exterior and the interior. I'm using both of mine the same. Keep in mind that one, if you're having a directional print, it wouldn't matter. For the exterior, the curve will be the bottom. For the interior, the curve would be the top. The pattern piece has a marking for your snap if you choose to use it. I did go ahead and mark that and have it already before I even sew it. It's already taken care of. I'm using cotton woven, so I did choose to use a very light weight, not even a medium weight. I'm just using a light weight interfacing on this. I didn't want anything too heavy or too bulky because it's not necessary for this pattern. So I have the two flap pieces. Then I have my two belt loop pieces. That's the two pieces here at the top. I went ahead, let me go ahead and unclip these. I went ahead and interfaced these and then just folded them like I would any other strap. I folded the raw edges to the middle and then I folded it again to make a piece of double fold tape. And this is how I will sew that to make those belt loops. So you will need two of those. You do have pattern pieces for all of this, so it's not a cut and measure pattern. It is a pattern that has full pattern pieces. The next thing we're going to talk about is this front pocket here. This is considered your front pocket. You'll need two pieces here. You will need an exterior and your lining. Again, I'm using the same prints. I keep it easy and simple. It helps me cut quicker. I have both of these. I did interface with that same very lightweight interfacing. And then the only two pieces you need after that is going to be your back pocket and this loop anchor. The loop anchor is what secures the belt loops to the back of the bag. I went ahead and clipped it in place, and for this is my exterior. I did put a little bit of fleece on this just to give it a little bit of more support and stability. You do not have to. I did keep it completely out of the seam allowances. I'm finding that I prefer, even though my machine can handle keeping interfacing in it, I prefer the look. I feel like I get a cleaner look if I keep the interfacing out when it gets like a fleece or a foam or anything like that. So this is my exterior. This is the loop anchor, and this is the interior back panel. So two back panel pieces, one loop anchor piece. For the interior, I just used a lightweight interfacing, no fleece on this one at all. That is all the pieces we need to sew this bag. You're going to be amazed at how quick it is. If you choose to use a snap, I'm just using the cam snaps. You could use a magnetic snap. You could use a twist lock. You could do whatever you want. You could leave it off. I love cam snaps, so I'm using that for mine. The last thing I want to say is, like I mentioned, I'm actually making a belt loop for this one. I'm keeping it very simple. I just took a piece of webbing, 1 inch. I took a, what are these even called? Parachute snaps? I don't know. But I took one of these. I get mine on Amazon. They're just plastic and they just click open and shut. I fed one end of the strap through here. I'll fold this raw edge under and then I'm just going to sew there. For this other side, I did it really simple. I'm not even going to attach it to this other piece of webbing. I just folded it under to hide the raw edges, but I will leave it loose so that I can adjust it. So depending on if I'm wanting to wear like a sweatshirt or a jacket, or if I'm just walking in a tank top, I have the ability to make it tighter, or if I want to wear it a sling, I could make it looser and have those options there. There are ways to have it look differently, but I wanted to keep this simple, so I'm not putting any extra thought, and this is the most simple way to make a basic belt strap. So now that we've talked about all the pieces, let's go ahead and start prepping and sewing this pattern. I'm going to take these two back panel pieces with this anchor attached, and I'm going to set them aside. I'm not working with them right now. What I am going to work with though are these 3 sets. I'm first going to take my belt loops that I already have folded and clipped, and I'm just going to top stitch down each long side about 1/8 of an inch away. So I'll be stitching all 4 sides of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flap. I'm going to clip my lining and my exterior right sides together. Once I have those clipped together, I'm going to start sewing at the top here, back stitch, go all the way around, and coming back stitch here. Basically, you will be sewing a U. You will leave this top completely open. The seam allowance for the flap is larger than the other seam allowances in the pattern. It is a different seam allowance just to make for sure that you get the flap the proper size so it doesn't catch on the sides whenever you're putting everything all together. I'm also going to take this front pocket piece. I went ahead and clipped both the exterior and the lining right side together again, and I'm just going to sew with the seam allowance given the pattern across the top here. Make sure you back stitch on both sides there also. So let me do these steps and then we'll come back. And yeah, I know I do sew things out of order from the pattern, but this is just what makes sense in my head to get things prepped and go in this. If it stresses you, please follow the pattern and you'll do just fine as well. Okay, so now I have these pieces prepped. I'm going to go ahead and take these belt loops. I'm going to set them aside for just a minute and I'm going to work on these pieces here. With my flap, if you want to, if you're uncomfortable, you can make notches all along your curved edge, or you can trim down your seam allowance just a little. But what you're going to do is you're going to turn this right sides out. You're going to press it, take it over your ironing board, take some time, smooth everything out. And then we're going to top stitch all around that. So you won't see me ironing on camera, but you will see me top stitching it on camera. For the front pocket piece, what you're going to do is you're going to separate those 2 pieces. So here's the lining exterior, right side, wrong side, and I'm going to take this over to the iron too, and I just want to press that seam flat open. I just like to do that. It's not required, but I just like to. But then what you'll do is your bottom corners, you will take each bottom corner cutout and you're just simply going to fold them together. They'll fit up perfectly, and we're going to put a clip right there in place like this. We're going to do that with all 4 of these, and we're going to sew these little corners together with the seam lines again, the pattern. So you'll start here at the bottom and then just sew straight down and back stitch both times when you start and when you stop, and that'll make your little box corners. So again, you won't see me ironing on camera, but I will come back to stitch both of these pieces up. Do the 2 corners on your exterior and the 2 corners on your lining. So I sewed all 4 corners and I top stitch around my flap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this flap aside just for a minute while I'm finishing working up this front pocket. I'm going to fold this wrong sides together and have that seam directly at the top. Let's go ahead and put a clip or 2 in here just to keep that orientated properly. And if you ironed your seam open, it's going to just fold exactly the way you want it to. And now what I want to do is I'm just going to keep clipping around the sides. And when I get down to these corners, it's going to look like this, and you're just going to push them in and nest them. When I say nest, I mean one seam's going one way, the other's going that way, and they're just going to fit perfectly together like that. Okay, and that's going to make that dimension so that that front pocket, it's kind of like sewing darts, and that front pocket will have just a little bit more push out so that it's a little more 3D and can hold things in there a little bit better. So I'll do that with this other side too. Nest those seams. Push that down just a little in the front to make sure those raw edges line up. It shouldn't be an issue anyway. So now that I have the raw edges clipped, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew all the way around here. So it'll be top stitching here at the top, and then it'll just be a basting stitch all around the perimeter, about 1/8 of an inch away. So for me now, I'm going to look and see which way I want to be the front, and I'm just going on based on how it looks. And I think I like this way to be the front because I like that moon lower because it won't be covering up the flap. The flap won't be covering that up. So I think I want it this way. And since I've already marked where my snaps go, I'm going to go ahead and install them now. Get that step taken care of. I'm using cam snaps. You do not have to use cam snaps. You don't have to use any closure at all. I'm using cam snaps because they're so quick. I have a handheld press. For the flap, I got to again decide which. I want this to be my exterior. So for the exterior, I'll put the smooth side on the exterior, and I have mine going through both. And then I will put the male portion right here, and I will simply take the press, fit it on there, and just push. That's all there is to it. And I do apply a little bit of pressure because what you're wanting is this pin to come down and kind of smash the plastic so it kind of mushrooms out. It's not anything like technical or anything. I had a thread there. So there is that. Same thing for the pocket, except this way the smooth side will be on my lining. Let me find the hole there. I missed my hole. And if you didn't want yours to go through both the exterior and the lining, you wouldn't have to do it on either of these. It's just, it doesn't bother me. It's a smooth finish, so it's like, it doesn't look bad this way. And plus, I feel like when I go through extra layers, it just helps it to have a little bit more like holding power so it doesn't rip out as easily or cause any problems. So that's the way I do it. But for this one on your front pocket, your exterior, that's the part that needs to be actually the snapping portion. So that'll be the female portion on my exterior. On the lining will be the smooth portion. So I put that pressure on there. And these two pieces are ready to go. I'm going to set them aside, and then we will come back and start working on the back. So now pull out that back piece, your 2 belt loops, and the anchor. Like I said, I have my anchor already attached on here. I'm going to talk just a little bit about how I folded the anchor. The pattern tells you how far under to fold each long edge of the anchor. So it's a specific measurement you fold it under. You're not folding it to the middle. You can see mine right there. The white is the interfacing. So after I do that, I use double-sided tape on this, and then I did use the wash away double-sided tape because I didn't want any problems with my needle being gummy or anything like that. So I did do that. I ironed it flat, and then the pattern actually has, you can measure, but the pattern actually gives you the exact placement as to where you put the anchor, as to where the belt loops go. So I'm going to put the clips here. I use that pattern piece to make 2 dots as to where the middle of my belt loops will go. For my belt loops, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold them in half And just for my convenience, I'm going to baste the short edges together just to help me not have to worry about anything shifting while I'm sewing. And on this part, if you're a little uncomfortable with worrying about things are shifting, you could definitely use double-sided tape, a little bit of glue, whatever you want to hold these in place. The pattern also gives you measurements if you want to rivet. So if you wanted to, you could put this here in place according to the pattern, according to the template, everything. And you could even put a rivet first if you wanted to kind of secure it and then sew it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and sew both of these in place. I'm just slipping it in. So here's the raw edge. I just lift it up and slip it down according to that measurement. I'm going to put a clip right here, but you don't need it if you're going just straight over your machine. You can hold it in place, and then while you're sewing, just make sure it stays where it needs to. We're going to sew these two long edges on the anchor, and that will secure this in place. You could sew a square or a box or put a rivet there if you felt like you needed extra security. Get some of these extra clips out of the way. And let's go ahead and sew about 1/8 of an inch away from the two long edges of your anchor, securing the belt loops into place. Just as a note, the anchor is intentionally designed to be a little bit longer, just so you have a little bit of room to play with, and then you'll trim it up at the end. So far, here's our back. Here's the lining for the back pocket. Here's our flap and our front pocket. Before I start putting everything together, now that it's all prepped, I'm going to go ahead and pull out that optional thing that I'm doing that's not in the pattern and just make me a really quick belt, so I can wear this as a sling or as a hip bag and make it easier for myself. So I'm just sewing the edges of the webbing is all I'm doing to secure them in place so they won't fray or come apart. So to start putting this all together, I'm going to take my front pocket and my back exterior. The back lining and the flap I'm going to set aside for a minute. So what I want to do is I want to take my exterior side. The exterior side is the one that has the snap on it if you did it so that it's facing out, because the flap will come down. This is your exterior. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place it right sides together with this back exterior. You don't want to smash this out. You're going to match up these curves and let this pocket stay a 3D pocket. Your pocket top will be just a little bit under your anchors to kind of help reduce bulk. So take your time when you're placing it. Sometimes I found that I would like to adjust it like, oh, do I want it this way or that way? So start placing it. You can find your centers. If you want, that would be an easy way to start it. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Exteriors are right sides together. This is the lining of my front pocket, and there is the back of the back exterior. So let's go ahead and baste this into place. So this is what I have so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flap, and remember, this is the actual exterior of the flap, the smooth part of your snap if you have it. This is going to be considered the lining. So I want to take this and place it right sides together at the top here. I'm going to fold these belt loops down, get them out of the way, because I do not want to sew over them, and I'm just going to center this flap right along the top, right sides together, and baste this in place also. So this is what we have. The only piece we have left is this lining back pocket, and guess what you're going to do? You're just going to take this, place it right sides together with this entire unit. We are going to clip all the raw edges together, and then we're just going to leave an opening here at the top, about 3 inches. So we will start sewing here, back stitch, go all the way around, all the way up, back over, back stitch again, and then we're going to turn it out and finish it up like any other bag. So let's start clipping these two pieces right sides together. You will have to do some tucking in of everything, because you can see, look, it's going to be like, oh, that's not going to fit. It does fit. You just kind of have to pull it. It'll be like a little boofy pillow for a few minutes. And when you're sewing, just press everything down to make sure those edges stay lined up while you're sewing. You're going to sew this with the seam allowance given the pattern, but I always like to make sure when I'm sewing that this flap is not going to get caught in the seam allowance. I'm not going to have any problems. I have the proper seam allowance here. If you don't, make sure you just go over. You do not want to catch your flap in that seam because then your bag won't work properly. This is my pillow. You can see it's a little poofy. I'm just going to sew, leaving the opening at the top all the way around using that seam allowance, watching my side seams here to make sure that flap does not shift or get caught in the way. Everything is sewn together. I'm so excited. I did leave my hole a little bit smaller than I should have. I may have to clip into that. I just got excited. But I'm going to go ahead and see if I can squeeze it all through my tiny little opening there at the top. And then we will just finish up the bag by tucking in and closing that top opening. Okay, so this is what I have right now. I need to flip my pocket the right way. Remember there, you can see everything's going to work. It looks great. The only thing I have to do is just close up this opening. You can see it already wants to go where I need it to go. If you want to put a little piece of double-sided tape there to keep it in place while you stitch it, you can. I'm going to stitch this in place, and I'm going to stitch from this back side so I can watch and keep it on this seam. What I want to do is pull this up so it covers the stitches, and that way I can sew directly on this kind of where the flap meets anyway. I just feel like it'll look neater, but I'm going to keep my loops down to do that. Now I will need to take this over to the ironing board to iron it out. I won't do that on video, but I do need to do that for sure. So I'm just going to stitch all the way across. From this folded edge, I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch away. I'm going to pull everything real tight so it stays really nice and looks good when it's done. Flip it over, make sure I caught everything. Perfect. I'm going to trim these loose threads. I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and get this pressed out flat, and then my treasure keeper is ready to be used to hold any treasures or any necessities you need when you're out and about. There's a lot of different ways you can use this pattern, so give me your ideas for how you can use it. I don't know if anybody hangs their clothes up to dry, but I even thought this is the perfect clothespin bag if you do that, because it can just slide right along the line to hold your clothespins in it. But here is the latest pattern from Puntillas Y Nudos, the Treasure Keeper. I'm going to have the link for this pattern and for the materials that I bought in my description of this video. Thank you so much for once again watching another tutorial of mine. And if you have any suggestions for tutorials you want to see, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day creating your own treasure keeper or sewing whatever's in your sewing room. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.